Welcome. So in this lesson, we're going to cover highest common factor and lowest common multiple. I'll break this lesson up into two parts. And in this first part right now, we'll go through the highest common factor. So our learning intentions: to know the meaning of the terms highest common factor, HCF, and lowest common multiple, LCM, to be able to find the highest common factor of two numbers, and to be able to find the lowest common multiple of two numbers. Okay, so let's begin by talking about what the highest common factor is, which we call the HCF. So HCF stands for highest common factor. It refers to the highest factor that is common to the numbers provided in the question. So for instance, find the HCF of 24 and 40. So the first step here is we're listing out all the factors of 24 and all the factors of 40. So that's the first thing we do. We just list out all our factors. Now what we're going to do is say, well, what do they have in common? What are the common factors of 24 and 40? So 1 is in common, 2 is in common, 4 is in common, 8 is in common, 12 isn't, 24 isn't. Then the next question we're going to say is, well, what is the highest common factor? So all the blue represents my common factors, and the highest common factor is obviously going to be 8. That's the biggest common factor there. So that means our answer is going to be 8. Okay, so now having seen how it works, let's just do some examples for ourselves. So it says we need to find the highest common factor, HCF, of 36 and 48. So let's begin by just listing out the factors of 36. So I know that 1 times 36 gives me 36. 2 times what will give me 36? That's going to be 18. 3 times what will give me 36? That's going to be 12. Then we're just going to keep on going. So now I'm going to say, I know that 4 goes into 36, and that's going to be 4 times what? 4 times 9. And then finally, it's just going to be 6 times 6 will be the final one there. Now we're going to do the same thing for 48. So 1 times 48 works. 2 times 24 works. I know that 3 goes into 48, and I know that it goes in 16 times. And then I'm going to have 4 next. 4 goes into 48 12 times, so 4 12s are 48. 5 I know doesn't go in, but 6 does. That's 6 8s. And then finally, the last number is going to be, no, 7 doesn't go in, so that means I'm done. And then if we wanted to take it really slow, we could say, all right, what do they have in common? Well, 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 6 and 6, 12 and 12, and that's it. And now the highest common factor is simply going to be 12. HCF is 12. Now, this is a good way to do it. There's nothing wrong with doing it this way. You're just listing them all out and you're trying to figure it out. Is there a better way of going about it? And I'm going to argue that there is a better way of going about it. And that is when you're asked to find the highest common factor of two numbers, what I would say is the first thing you do is take the smaller number, so in this case 24, and just find all the factors for it, 1 and 24. Even here, we could stop and say, is 24 divisible, or does 24 go into 72? Is 72 divisible by 24? And it is. 24 does go into 72. It goes in 3 times. And so what that tells me is that 24 is going to be my highest common factor, because remember, they have to have the same factor in common. They have to be common. And I already know that this is the biggest for 24. So it has to be 24. And just like that, I'm done. I could say HCF is 24. But let's just take it slow and let's actually just write them all out, and you'll see what I mean here. So I already know that 24 is the correct answer, but let's just keep on going. Then I would get 2 and 12. I would get 3 and 8. I would get 4 and 6. Then I would get, and that's it, 5 doesn't go in. Next I have 72. 1 and 72. 2 and 36. 3 and 24. Does 4 go in? Yes, it does. It goes in 18 times. 4 and 18. how many times? 5, we can skip 5. That means we go to 6. 6 goes into 72 12 times. 6 12s are 72. And then 7, we don't have 7. Do we have 8? 8 9s. 8 9s. So I'm just going through my timetables. That's all we're doing there. Okay, now that did take some time. We had to think about it. We had to think about our times tables when we're doing it. And then at the end of that, if we wanted to take it slow, we'd say, well, I have 1 in common, I have 1 in common, I have 2 in common, I have 2 in common, I have 3 in common, I have 3 in common, I have 4 in common, I have 4 in common, I have 6 in common, I have 6 in common, I have 8 in common, I have 8 in common, I have 12 in common, I have 12 in common, and I have 24 in common, I have 24 in common. And then after all of that, you can clearly see that 24 is going to be our answer. But we could have just answered that almost immediately. You take your smaller number, you find the factors for it, and then you slowly go, all right, you slowly just work your way down and say, is that one divisible by the other number? No. Is this one divisible by the other number? No. And then when you find it, you're done. So there's no need to find both of them and take a long time to do it. Of course, you can do this if you're feeling unsure, but let's now go through some more examples and I'll show you just the real quick way of doing this. All right, so 80 and 120. So we're going to take our smaller number, 80, and we're just going to list out the factors. 1 and 80. 120 divided by 80, that doesn't work. It's not perfectly divisible, so 80 is not my highest common factor. What about 2 and 40? Does 40 go into 120? Well, yes, it does. It goes in 3 times because 40 times 3 is 120. So that's going to be my answer, 40. And just like that, I'm done. How easy is that? 40 is going to be my answer. So HCF is 40. Let's now do the next one, 15 and 60. So I go take my lower number, 15, and I just list out the factors, 1 and 15. Let's just stop here. Does 15 go into 60? Yes, it does. It does go into 60. If we think about it for a minute, we have 60. We have 1 and 60. Then we have 2 and 30. And then we would have not 3. Well, 3 would go in. 3 would go in 20 times. But then 4 would be 15. 4 times 15 would be 60. So that means 15 is going to be my number. So as you can see, we're not taking a whole lot of time on doing this. We could have just stopped. As soon as you know that 15 goes into 60, you're done. As long as the question doesn't ask for working out, we can do these lickety-split. And the last one here, 8, 28, and 81. Okay, so again, what we're going to do is we're going to take our smallest number, so in this case 8, and we're going to go, all right, 8 is 1 and 8. 8 doesn't go into 81. 8 doesn't go into 28. What about 2 and 4? 4 doesn't go into 81. 4 does go into 28, but it has to be highest common factor for all 3 numbers. So I should have said now we've got 3 numbers, so we have to think of the highest common factor for all 3 of them. And 4, even though it does go into this one, it doesn't go into that one, so we can't include it. And then that's it. They're all my factors for 8. So if it's not 8 and it's not 4, and I know that 2 doesn't go into 81, so that means the only one left is going to be 1. So that means my highest common factor here is going to be 1. HCF is 1. And we could go through this a bit slower. If we wanted to, we could now find all the factors for 28. So it's going to be 1 and 28. And then it would be 2 and 14. And then it would be 3 doesn't go in, but 4 goes in 7 times. And then we'd have to do the same thing for 81. So this one might take some time. It'll be 8, 1, and 81. 2 doesn't go in. 3 does go in. 3 goes in. Let me just double check. 3 goes in. It goes in twice with 2 remainder, 27. 4 doesn't go in. 5, no. 6, no. It's going to be 9. And then you'd have to say, all right, what do they have in common? Remember, they have to be common to all of them. They can't just be common to 2 of them. So you might say, here's 1 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 4 and 4. But remember, they only share 1s in common. That's the only thing all of them share in common. So my highest common factor is 1. But you can see just by using the smallest number, we can kind of get there rather quickly. Okay, and that's it. Hopefully all that made sense. Hopefully you feel comfortable not just with listing them all out, but also by going through it a bit quicker. And with that being said, I will stop the video and I will start part 2, which will be about the lowest common multiple.